If you are a mother or father, especially if you have adult children, you need to watch this video until the end. What I'm going to share with you today is not a fictional story. It's not an isolated case. It's my story, and possibly the story of someone you know, or even your own story unfolding right now, in slow motion, without you realizing it. My name is Margaret. I am 79 years old, and for decades, I did everything right. At least that's what I thought. I worked hard, raised 3 children on my own after my husband left, paid my bills, went to church every Sunday, helped my neighbors. I was what everyone would call a good person. More than that, I was what everyone would call a good mother. But today, as I record this video, I'm sitting in a house I can barely afford, surrounded by overdue bills, taking medications I have to choose between buying or eating properly at the end of the month. My retirement? $1,400 a month from Social Security. My savings? Less than $3,000 after a lifetime of work. And my children, those 3 babies I once held in my arms and promised to protect forever, they are struggling too, drowning in debt, unable to help me even if they wanted to. How did this happen? How did a woman who worked for 40 years end up here? It all started with a signature, a cosign on a car loan for my oldest son. $18,000, Mom. I promise I'll pay. He didn't. And when the bank came knocking, guess who had to take responsibility? But that was only the beginning. Then came the credit card, just for emergencies. The $500 here to help with rent. The $1,200 there to cover a medical bill. 30 years of just this once that turned into a mountain of debt I will never be able to pay off. The answer is simple and painful. I loved without limits. And no one told me that love without financial boundaries can destroy not only my life, but also the future of the people I love most. This story happens every day in America. Millions of parents, especially mothers of my generation, are facing an old age filled with hardship because they neglected one crucial lesson. You cannot build your children's future on the ashes of your own. In the next few minutes, I'm going to take you through my journey. I'll show you every decision that seemed right at the time, but led me to where I am today. I'll show you the warning signs I ignored, the excuses I made to myself, and the real price, in dollars and dignity, that I paid for confusing sacrifice with love. If you have adult children, if you are financially helping people you love, if you feel guilty every time you think about saying no, or if you simply want to make sure your old age is different from mine, this video is for you. Stay with me until the end. In the next chapter, I'll tell you about the first mistake, the one that seemed so small, so harmless, so natural for a mother to make, the mistake that planted the seed for everything that came after. It's 11 p.m. The kitchen light flickers again. I've needed to replace that bulb for 3 weeks, but every time I go to the grocery store, I choose food instead of light bulbs. It's funny how you start making these choices without even realizing it. The table is covered with papers, credit card bills with red numbers, notices from the insurance company, a letter from my landlord reminding me that the rent has gone up again, and in the middle of it all, a framed photo of my 3 children when they were little. Daniel was 6, Sarah was 4, and Tommy was in my arms, just a baby. I look at those smiling faces and wonder, how did we get here? I remember the day I became a single mother. I was 32 years old, with 3 small children, and a husband who decided that family life wasn't for him. That night, sitting on the floor of their empty bedroom while they slept, I made a promise, a sacred promise. I will never let you go without. I will never say no when you need me. I will be both mother and father. I will find a way, always. And for 47 years, I kept that promise. I worked 2 jobs when necessary. I skipped meals so they could eat. I wore thrift store clothes so they could have new sneakers at the start of the school year. Being a mother, to me, meant total sacrifice. It meant putting my children first, always, without exceptions, without questions. That's the culture I grew up in. Here in America, especially for women of my generation, we were taught that a good mother sacrifices herself, that motherhood is synonymous with self-denial, that if you're thinking about yourself, if you're saving anything for yourself, then you're not loving enough. I absorbed that message as if it were oxygen. And when my children grew up, when they became adults with their own lives and their own struggles, I kept being that mother, the mother who never says no, the mother who always finds a way. Mom, can I borrow your card for just a few days? Mom, Can you co-sign this loan for me? Mom, I need help with the rent this month. And me? I always said yes. Because what kind of mother says no to her own child? What kind of mother watches her child struggle when she still has a credit card with available limit, still has some money in the account, still has a way to help? But here's the truth no one told me, that no parenting magazine published, that no friend had the courage to say, there is an invisible line between helping and sacrificing yourself. And when you cross that line, you are not saving your children. You are drowning along with them. My first mistake was invisible, silent, and dressed as love. I confused financial sacrifice with motherhood. And that mistake, more than any other, determined where I am today. It started on a Saturday morning in September 2003. I remember it because it was Daniel's 24th birthday, my oldest son. He showed up at my door with that slightly awkward smile I knew so well. The smile he wore when he needed something but didn't quite know how to ask. Mom, I got a new job. It's an amazing opportunity, but it's on the other side of the city. I need a car. He paused. The bank approved the loan, but they need a co-signer, someone with good credit, just as a guarantee, Mom. I'll make all the payments, I promise. It's just putting your name on the paper. Just putting my name on the paper. The car cost $18,000. The payments were $340 a month for 5 years. I looked into my son's eyes, that boy I raised on my own, who was trying to build his life, and I thought, how could I say no? He needed to work. He needed transportation. This was an investment in his future. I signed. For 6 months, Daniel paid on time, and then he stopped. First, it was 1 late month. Sorry, Mom, I had some unexpected expenses. I'll pay next month along with it. Then 2 months. Then 3. The calls from the bank started. Always to me, never to him. I took over the payments. $340 coming out of my account every month. It's temporary, I told myself, just until he gets back on his feet. But then came Sarah, my middle child. Her college was more expensive than she expected. Student loans didn't cover everything. Mom, it's just $3,500 for this semester. I'll get a scholarship for the next one, I swear. But if I don't pay now, I'll lose my spot. I paid. With a credit card. Because I had available credit. And because, well, she was my daughter. And then Tommy, my youngest, called at 2 a.m. He was 3 months behind on rent. He was about to be evicted. He was crying on the phone. Mom, I have nowhere to go. Please. It's just $2,400. Just this once. I'll get a second job, I promise. I transferred the money the next day. From my credit card. Because what else could I do? Let my child end up on the street? Just this once. That phrase became the soundtrack of my life. Just this once turned into every week. Every week turned into every month. And before I realized it, my card was maxed out. And then the second card. And then the third. Here in America, credit is dangerously easy to get. They send you offers in the mail. Instant approval. Limits of $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. It feels like free money. Until you realize it isn't. The interest rates were 23.99% a year. But I didn't pay attention to that. I only saw the available number. How much I could still help. Every month I paid the minimum. $85 here. $120 there. And every month, the debt grew. Silently. In the shadows. Like a cancer you only discover when it's already too late. Because I was a mother. And a mother finds a way. Always. I realized something was wrong on a Thursday afternoon, 3 years after that first loan. My phone rang. It was Daniel. My heart did that little jump. That strange mix of joy and fear. Every mother knows when her child calls at an unexpected time. Hi, Mom. How are you? His voice was overly cheerful, performative. I already knew what was coming. We talked for maybe 2 minutes about the weather, about his job, about nothing at all. And then, listen, Mom, I'm in a tight spot here. The air conditioner in my apartment broke, and the landlord says it's my responsibility to fix it. It's $850. Can you help me? I hung up the phone and looked at the calendar on the wall. Daniel had called me 7 times in the past 2 months. 7 times. And not a single one of those calls was just to ask how I was doing. Not one. Sarah was the same. Tommy too. My conversations with my adult children had turned into financial transactions disguised as family phone calls. And the worst part? I had started to expect those calls. Because if they needed me, I was still important. Still necessary. Still had a role in their lives. What kind of mother had I become that needed to be needed through money? All 3 of my credit cards were maxed out. All of them. Capital One, $12,400. Chase, $8,900. Discover, $6,300. More than $27,000 in credit card debt, accumulated drop by drop. Just this once. After just this once. The car loan I had co-signed for Daniel, he stopped paying completely after the first year. The collection notices came to me. Always to me. I was paying $340 a month for a car I never drove, that wasn't even in my name, but for which I was financially responsible. And there was more. Sarah asked me to co-sign her apartment lease. It's just a formality, Mom. They require a co-signer because of my credit, but I'll pay the rent on time. Until the day she lost her job. 3 months of unpaid rent. Guess who received the eviction notice? Me. I started avoiding looking at my bank account. I started having nightmares about red numbers. I began feeling a tightness in my chest every time the phone rang. And the guilt was deafening. Because when I thought about saying no, when I considered setting boundaries, a voice in my head screamed, "What kind of mother are you? What kind of mother abandons her children when they need her most?" So I stopped saving completely. I stopped contributing to my 401k at work. Every dollar that was left, and there were few, went to them or to paying off the debts I had taken on for them. My future? I didn't think about it, because deep down, I believed in a dangerous fantasy, that my sacrifice today would be my security tomorrow, that when I needed help, when I was too old to work, when life demanded its due, they would be there. That love is an investment that always pays back. But when you become the financial plan for your adult children, when your money becomes the solution to all their problems, something is deeply, irrevocably wrong. I just didn't know it yet. I retired in March of 2018. I was 68 years old, 40 years working as an administrative assistant at a law firm, 40 years of waking up at 6 in the morning, taking 2 buses, typing documents, filing cases, being efficient, reliable, invisible. My retirement party was on a Friday afternoon. Grocery store cake, a card signed by coworkers, a handshake from the boss. "Thank you for your service, Margaret. Enjoy your retirement." And the following Monday, for the first time in 4 decades, I had nowhere to go. The silence of the house was deafening. 3 weeks later, my first Social Security letter arrived. I opened it with trembling hands, as if it were a medical diagnosis. In a way it was. $1,420 a month. I looked at that number and tried to do the math. Rent, $950. Electricity and water, $120. Food, $300 if I was careful. Gas, $80. Car insurance, $95. Medications for high blood pressure and diabetes, $180 even with Medicare. That was already $1,725, and I only had $420, and I was still paying $450 a month in credit card debt, the combined minimum payments on the 3 cards I had maxed out helping my children. The math was impossible. Literally impossible. I had a small amount of savings. Very small. $12,000 that I had managed to set aside in the last few years, when I finally stopped helping so much. It seemed like a lot until I did the math. With my monthly deficit, that money would last less than 2 years. I sat at the kitchen table and cried. I cried like I hadn't since the day my husband left, because for the first time in my life I understood. I was alone. Completely alone. I picked up the phone. I called Daniel. He didn't answer. I sent a message. "Son, I need to talk to you about something important." He replied 6 hours later. "Hi, Mom. I'm super busy this week. Can we talk this weekend?" I called Sarah. She answered, but she was distracted. I could hear children screaming in the background. "Mom, this isn't a good time. The boys are impossible today. Can I call you later?" She never called. Tommy? Tommy had changed his number and forgotten to tell me. In the days that followed, I tried again and again, until I finally managed to talk to Daniel. I told him about my situation, about the bills that didn't add up, about the fear I was feeling. "Mom, I understand, but you know my situation is tough too, right? I have my own rent, my own bills. Sarah has 3 kids. Tommy can barely take care of himself." Pause. "You've always found a way before. You'll find a way again." He said that. He really said it. You've always found a way. as if I were an endless source. As if money flowed out of me like water from a faucet. As if I weren't human, didn't age, didn't have limits. I hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling. And finally, at 68 years old, I understood the most painful truth of my life. Love does not guarantee retirement. Sacrifice does not guarantee reciprocity. And when you hit rock bottom, no one saves you. Not even the ones you sacrificed your entire life for. 6 months after my retirement, I was sitting in the office of a free financial counselor that the church offered to seniors. Her name was Patricia. She was about 40 years old, wore red-framed glasses, and had a gentle way of speaking. I brought all my paperwork, the debts, the bank statements, the full story. Patricia spent an hour reviewing everything in silence. And then she asked me a question that changed everything. Margaret, during all those years helping your children, did you ever invest any money for yourself? I blinked. Invest? I barely had any money left over. She nodded slowly. Let me show you something. Patricia picked up a calculator and a pen. You told me that in 1990, when you were 45 years old, you received a $5,000 bonus, and you gave it all to your children, split evenly, correct? Yes, they needed it. Daniel was starting college. Sarah needed a used car. Tommy. I understand, she interrupted gently. Now follow me. If you had invested those $5,000 in a simple index fund, with a conservative average return of 8% per year, do you know how much you would have today, 28 years later? She wrote down the number, $25,143. My stomach dropped. But it doesn't stop there, Patricia continued. You told me that for about 30 years, from 1988 to 2018, you spent an average of $300 a month helping your children. It was just $300. It didn't seem like much at the time, right? I nodded, speechless. If you had invested that same $300 a month for those 30 years, with the same 8% annual return. She paused, then slowly wrote, $447,000. The world stopped. $447,000. That can't be right, I whispered. It is correct, Margaret. That's the power of compound interest. Time is the most valuable asset we have, and you had time, 30 years of it. But every dollar that went to your children was a dollar that couldn't grow for you. I couldn't breathe. $400,000. That number echoed in my head like a funeral bell. With that money, I could be taking $2,000 a month just from the returns, without touching the principal. Added to my Social Security, I would have $3,400 a month. I would live comfortably, with dignity, without fear. But no, I had zero, less than zero. I had debt. Patricia held my hand. Margaret, no one taught you this. No one showed you these numbers. Society told you to sacrifice, to be a good mother, to always put your children first. But no one explained the real cost. She was right. No one talks about this. No parenting magazine publishes articles about compound interest. No TV show shows mothers learning about investing. The message we receive is only one. Sacrifice yourself. Everything else is selfishness. But there is a brutal difference between helping and sacrificing. Helping is teaching your child how to fish. Sacrificing is giving away your only fish and starving for the rest of your life. I lived in what Patricia called emotional money. Money you spend so you don't feel guilty, so you're not seen as a bad mother, to keep the peace. But emotional money charges extremely high interest. And the one who pays is your future. I walked out of that office a different woman, broken, but awake. I was 72 years old when I finally learned to say no. Too late? Probably. But it's never too late to reclaim a little of your dignity, a little of your self-respect. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Sarah called. I already knew from her tone. Mom, Tommy's in a tough spot. He lost his apartment and is living in his car. He needs $1,500 for a deposit on a new place. I tried to help, but I can't. Can you? My heart raced. My throat tightened. That automatic reflex from 50 years of motherhood wanted to take over. Of course, dear. I'll figure it out. But this time, something different happened. I looked at the kitchen table. At the bills I could barely pay myself. At the bank statement showing $380 left for the month, with 12 days still to go. At the medications I had to ration because I couldn't buy them all at once. And for the first time in my life, I chose myself. Sarah, my voice trembled. My hands were sweating. I can't. Silence on the other end of the line. What do you mean you can't? I don't have that money, dear. I'm barely keeping up with my own bills. Mom, it's Tommy, your son. He's going to be on the street. Guilt started to suffocate me. That familiar voice in my head screaming, "What kind of mother are you? Monster! Selfish!" But this time, a new voice appeared. Quieter, but there. What kind of children leave their own mother in need? Sarah, I love you. I love Tommy. But I can't keep doing this. I have nothing left. I gave everything I had, and now I don't even have anything for myself. You've changed, Mom. You've become cold. Selfish. She said it. My own daughter. And you know what? She was right. I had changed. Because I finally understood that setting boundaries isn't a lack of love. Boundaries are love with responsibility. Boundaries are saying, I love you enough not to make you dependent on me. I love you enough to let you solve your own problems. I love you enough not to destroy myself trying to save you. Sarah hung up on me. Didn't speak to me for 3 months. Those were 3 of the most painful months of my life. But they were also freeing. I started working again. Part-time at Target. 4 hours a day. 5 days a week. $13 an hour. Not much, but $260 extra per week. $1,040 a month. Enough to cover my bills. I cut everything I could. Netflix canceled. Only generic supermarket food. No eating out. Ever. I learned to mend my own clothes. My pride, left in the past. And for the first time in decades, I slept through the night because I wasn't waiting for the next request, the next emergency, the next time I would have to choose between myself and them. I learned that teaching responsibility is more love than creating dependence. That, yes, isn't always kindness, and no isn't always cruelty. At 72, I finally learned to choose myself. It wasn't easy, it wasn't pretty, but it was necessary. If you've made it this far, thank you. From the bottom of my heart. I know my story hasn't been easy to hear. It wasn't easy to live, and it certainly wasn't easy to tell. But I needed you to hear it. Because somewhere right now, there's a mother, 45, 50, 55 years old, doing exactly what I did, believing she's being a good mother, believing sacrifice is love, believing her future can wait. And I need to tell you, looking into your eyes through this screen, it can't. Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me 30 years ago, something that could have changed everything. Don't break your old age to support their youth. Your children have 30, 40, 50 years ahead to grow, to work, to learn, to recover from mistakes, to build their lives. They have time. You don't. When you reach where I am, at 79, with a tired body, opportunities exhausted, and time short, there will be no turning back. No 30 more years to invest. No energy to work 2 jobs. No more chances. Help your children? Yes. Love them always. But don't empty yourself. Don't sacrifice your only chance at a dignified old age. Teach responsibility, not dependence. If you're doing everything for your adult children, answer me honestly. Are you helping them? Or are you keeping them from growing? Are you being useful? Or are you a crutch that stops them from learning to stand on their own? True love sometimes says no. Sometimes it sets boundaries. Sometimes it lets the other fall so they can learn to get up on their own. And that doesn't make you a bad mother. It makes you a wise mother. I know it hurts. God knows I do. The guilt is real. The fear of being seen as selfish is real. But do you know what else is real? Going hungry at 79 because you gave all your food to capable adults who should be taking care of themselves. Take care of your future now. Invest in yourself. Save money. Learn about compound interest. Build your retirement. Because when you reach where I am, no one will save you. Not even your children. No matter how much they love you. Their lives will be too full. Your financial security is your responsibility. And it's okay, necessary even, to put your oxygen mask on first. Because if you fall, you help no one. Today, at 79, with $1,220 from Social Security and a lifetime of financial regrets, I still work 4 hours a day at Target. I still choose between medicine and food. I still live on the edge. But I've learned. Late, painfully, but I've learned. And if my story can save one person, a single mother, a single father, from making the same mistakes, then sharing it was worth it. Don't be me. Be wiser than I was. Love your children, but love your future too. If this story touched you, if it made you think, give this video a like. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. A friend, a sister, a mother. Follow me here for more real stories about money, family, and the lessons life teaches us the hard way. And tell me in the comments, have you gone through something similar? Are you going through it now? Or do you know someone who needs to hear this message? Let's talk. Let's learn together. Let's change this story for the next generation. Because your story matters, your future matters, and you deserve a dignified old age. Thank you for listening. From the bottom of my heart.